agenda and following action on the consent agenda, the Planning Commission will continue with the regular agenda item. As a courtesy here today, please make sure you get your cell phones turned off. Any final action taken on conditional use permit requests will take effect 5 working days following this meeting unless a written appeal of the Planning Commission's decision is filed in the planning office by August 31st at 5 p.m. In the event of an appeal, the decision will be referred to the County Commission for a hearing on September 15th on or after 9 a.m. Any final actions taken on the rezoning application tonight will be referred to the County Commission for a public hearing on September 29th at or after 9 a.m. Meetings of the County Commission are held in this same room. At this time, the Planning Commission will consider the consent agenda. The minutes from the June 27th meeting are included as part of the consent agenda. Are there any objections from the Planning Commission members to any item on the consent agenda?
Mr. Chairman, before you take a vote, could you please read the paragraph, any final action on the conditional use permit? The County Commission is not, we found out after we mailed this out, that the County Commission is not meeting on the 15th because they have their County Commission convention. So any item will be referred to the September 22nd meeting. There is no meeting on the 15th. So
okay.
I want to make sure that the public is clear on that. So if you just reread that.
Yeah, so just to correct what I said earlier, any final action taken on conditional use permits requests will take effect 5 working days following this meeting unless a written appeal of the Planning Commission's decision is filed in the Planning Office by August 31st at 5 p.m. In the event of an appeal, the decision will be referred to the County Commission for a hearing, and that's going to be on September 22nd on or after 9 a.m., and that will be in this room. Okay.
Thank you.
And we didn't hear any objections to the consent agenda from the commissioners, correct? So next I'm going to read the items on the consent agenda, and if there's anyone in the audience that would like to have it moved from the consent agenda to the regular agenda, please raise your hand and we will move it to the regular agenda for a normal hearing process. So in addition to the approval of minutes of the July 27th meeting, item number 2 is a conditional use permit 15-51 to exceed 1,200 square feet of total accessory building, and this is on property located at 46551 266th Street, and that's approximately 3.5 miles west of Sioux Falls. No objections to that on the consent agenda. Okay, next item is conditional use permit 15-52 to exceed 1,200 square feet of total accessory building. This is located at 47146 257th Street, and that's approximately 1 mile east of Crooks. Item number 4 is a conditional use permit 15-53 to exceed 1,200 square feet of accessory building, and they're requesting 3,200 square feet. This is located at 25335 459th Avenue, and that's approximately 5 miles north of Humboldt. Item number 5 is a conditional use permit 15-54 to allow a single-family dwelling on property that's located at 24442 473rd Avenue, approximately 1 mile northwest of Del Rapids. Item number 6 is a conditional use permit 15-56 to exceed 1,200 square feet of total accessory building. They're requesting 6,525. That's located at 46846 West Highway 38, and that's approximately 2 miles west of Sioux Falls. Item number 7 is a conditional use permit 15-57 to exceed 1,200 square feet of total accessory building. They're requesting 2,400 square feet, and that's located at 26580 466th Avenue, and that's approximately 2.5 miles west of Sioux Falls. So those are the items on the consent agenda. I saw no one object to those being on the consent agenda. So I would entertain a motion to approve the consent agenda.
So moved.
Second.
Got a second this time. Any further discussion? All those in favor of the consent agenda say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign, and the consent agenda is approved. So if you're here for one of those items, your item has been approved, and you're free to leave at this time, or you can stick around for the fun if you'd like. It's up to you. Thanks for coming. motion for the regular agenda?
So moved.
Second.
A motion is second to approve the regular agenda. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Pose same sign. So for the regular agenda, we're going to follow our normal hearing procedure by requesting our planning staff to come forward and present a report on each item, and then we'll request the petitioner to come forward to the podium, make a statement, and answer questions. Anyone from the audience wishing to address the item shall be recognized by the chairman, move to the podium, and state their name and address for the record. The planning commission will then discuss the matter and take appropriate action. So, item number 8. Kevin, you're up.
Kevin Hookman, County Planning Department. Item number 8 is for conditional use permit number 1555 to allow a communications tower on the property legally described as Northwestern Bell, Tract 1, Northeast Quarter of Section 17-102-48, which is Brandon. This is located 2 miles northwest of Brandon, and it's a quarter-mile south of the County Highway 130. It was a site that formerly had a tower on it, but has since been taken down for an unknown amount of time. But the building is still located, the support building is still there. There is another lattice tower that's 255 feet tall that is located approximately 1.5 miles to the southeast of this proposed site. The petitioner would like to build a 310-foot tall lattice tower, which would be for radio broadcasting on the site. And I guess I'll go through it kind of fast because since this staff report has been sent out, the petitioner has brought back all the required waivers for the tower to be placed in this location. So both dwellings in the area have signed the waivers. I guess we can go through the pictures real fast. This would be the site plan. As stated before, there's an existing building there from the last tower. You would use that building and place the triangular shaped lattice tower right there. He said that the tower will have ability to have co-location on the tower as well, with plenty of room for more buildings as well. And the design of the tower. So there's the existing building and kind of a driveway up there. Looking to the north from the end of the driveway, you can see that there's the apple orchard about a quarter mile from the north. Looking to the south, there's not a whole lot going on to the south of the property. There's the direction of the nearest residence to the northeast, and that's approximately, I think it was 1,100 feet away. So that's where it required the waiver from that property owner, which we have received. Yes, and if you look real closely on this, you can see a tower right there, right above my pointer, where the nearest tower is.
It's really closely.
Oh, there, it's a little closer. The staff would like to recommend approval with the following conditions. 1, the facility meets the requirements of Article 1212 of the Minnehaha County Zoning Ordinance, with the exception of Section 1212C, number 3, and the equipment design B. A letter removal responsibility shall be submitted to the planning department prior to the issuance of the building permit. 3, a building permit is required before the erection of the tower. 4, a 6-foot high security fence shall be placed around the tower to discourage climbers and vandals. And 5, the security lighting shall be shoebox style that direct the light downward to prevent spillage of light in the neighboring properties. So do you have any questions?
Mr. Chairman? I have a question too, Mr. Chairman. My copy here says you're requesting deferral.
Yes, but I was requesting deferral because at the time that we printed and mailed this, we had not received all the...
And now you have.
And now we have,
Okay,
so we
thank
can
you.
go ahead and approve the rest.
Right?
Yes. The question I have is, in accordance with our ordinance, and that addresses the lighting. The reason I bring that up is the state radio tower now west of Wall Lake all of a sudden has a laser on it, or not a laser, strobe light, instead of a red.
Oh, it's probably not going night the way it's supposed to then.
Well, but it's like a low density one. They used to.
Yeah, the red one, yeah, I noticed the same thing, that it went away, yeah.
So that's why I was wondering, so it's a requirement they have to have the red light at night?
Yes, I
And not the
believe.
strobe lights like the big old Kello towers?
So the requirement is that it must meet the minimum of what the FCC requires. So I think that whatever they say for nighttime display, if it's a red light, then it's a red light. And I think during the daytime, it's usually a white light, but it's whatever the FCC requires.
And my understanding of that is that there's a nighttime option. So it's white at a certain number of lumens during the day, and it can drop down in intensity at night and stay white, or it can go red. Frankly, I don't like the white at night.
I don't either. Well, and I know there's on low density, the one out west by us, because when they first put it up, it was on high density, and it was just flashing in the
Crazy.
bedroom window at night.
Yeah.
It was just terrible.
Yeah.
But still, I always thought in our stuff, it said at night, it's a red light. And not-
If my
A white light.
recollection is correct, does it have something to do with the FAA guidelines that it needs to be a white light for a certain period of time when it's new? I know Scott can help us on that.
We're gonna look at the ordinance.
But I think some of those are FAA requirements, and then after it's been erected for a certain period of time, it can go to red.
Okay. Well, I would
If
think,
that's my memory.
Mike, hearing your concerns, that a condition could be, as long as it doesn't impede or interfere with FAA regulations, that it go red.
As soon as possible.
Yeah.
I could answer those questions for you.
Okay.
Well, I'll look it up while we answer
All
the
right,
questions.
thank you. Kevin, are any other questions, Kevin? All right, is the applicant here? Can you come forward and tell us about your project? And also maybe tell us about the FAA rules on that.
Hi, my name is Jim Cooper. I live in Humboldt, South Dakota, west of Sioux Falls, and my address is 26158 455th Avenue. I've been doing this for many years, and so this customer wants to put in a new FM station that would sit outside of town. The reason that we couldn't go to that other tower is because there's a signal restrictions, and he could not go any further east. I mean, we're right on the line. Actually, we're so close to the line that we're maybe crossing it, and the FCC and FAA said that's fine. But we have to either put it there, or we'd have to go further west, and that tower's a little small. And I've been putting up towers for many years, and as far as your light concern, it costs a little bit more for red light and strobe, but that's what I prefer because it's user-friendly. So this tower, and actually the lights don't focus down, the lights are cut on the glass at an angle so that they actually shoot up about 7 to 11 degrees on one of those two, I'm not sure, so that planes can see them, but they're not as visible from the ground. So this tower would have strobe, high-intensity strobe in the daytime. It would go to red lights at night, which is pretty user-friendly, and it's pretty nice.
Yeah.
And so, but you could use high-intensity strobe in the daytime and low-intensity strobe at night, but that's pretty, it can be pretty annoying and bright for people that live close. So I prefer not to do that.
Glad to hear that.
Let's see, you mentioned also, I think we talked about that. Any other questions?
I have one question. Okay, this is a 20 by 20 base on this thing?
I don't
That's what
think
the
it's
diagram
quite
says,
that big.
20.
I think it's like maybe 18, but it's pretty close to that, yeah.
As I look at when we look around the county, if you look at a freestanding tower of this size, they're kind of a nasty looking thing, versus a standard narrow one.
It takes a lot of steel to do them. The one on TLS Road we built, and that one has 5.5-inch solid 1018 cold steel legs to 144 feet. The one on Results Radio, that's 170 feet tall, doesn't have as much on it, but those are big, heavy legs also. To go 310 feet, I don't know what you'd have to have. You'd have to have something really big, so they triangle them in, and then they will try to cut down on the usage.
So why do this versus the guy wire one? I mean, it is 300 feet.
Well, guy wire is a cheaper option actually, because you can cut down on this massive footing that's underground, and then the guy wires just hold it, but it also interferes with the farmers and the farming and things like that. And so we elected to just take a 90 by 90 foot spot and put up that self-support. And now, I suppose the guy wires and the anchors sitting out in the field can also be visible to people. Maybe, I don't know if it's as much as a self-supporter would be, but yeah, it has a bigger base, yeah.
I was thinking of some of the staff that, it seems to me that some of these big freestanding towers, when we did the tower ordinance, that wasn't a part of it. To try to do guide wires, narrow the visibility image of the towers, and they were usually the guide wire supported ones and not these big, huge freestanding things that are over, like say, 20 feet at the base. So whenever you see one of those, I think a couple of them around the county. Well, we have one by Wall Lake. It's kind of a nasty looking thing out there in the middle of the country. And is that was never in our ordinances relative to that?
I don't believe it is, but Kevin found in the ordinance about the white lights versus red lights, and you can go ahead and read it for them.
Yeah, it says towers should not be artificially lighted unless required by FAA. Required safety lighting shall not exceed FAA minimum. Flashing white light shall not be allowed at nighttime lighting.
Great, that's what I thought.
It's not allowed.
So we need to run down and say that. Yeah. One more question. So is this galvanized construction? Is it painted or?
It's solid steel, and it's hot dip galvanized, so it'll never be painted.
Okay.
It'll be a silver color.
Mr. Chair?
Yes.
Safety. The safety of this type of design without the guide wires as compared to one with guide wires.
Well, this tower is designed so that if it was a catastrophic event, that the tower would fall from the bottom. We have one that we're putting up on 69th and Louise, or it looks like it will. That one's designed to buckle in the middle so that it couldn't reach out. You can design them however you want. And so this one actually, because it's out in the country, it's just designed so I suspect with a 90-mile-an-hour wind and all the antennas and all the lines and half an inch of ice that it could buckle it. Now, the building would probably go before then, I suppose. Maybe, I don't know, but they're designed really tough.
So the safety is equivalent.
Pardon?
The safety is equivalent to having the support wires.
Yes, it is. Yeah, they're designed like that. The guy where tower withstand more. I don't know. I've seen the wind rip guy wires off the tower, and so I don't know. I think they're designed the same that way. Yes.
Any other questions for Mr. Cooper? Thank you, sir. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to come forward and speak to this item? Okay. Your wishes.
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion to approve.
Got a motion to approve?
I'll second it.
Motion and second. Any further discussion?
The only thing I would say, I still have a problem with the visibility of this thing. Like I say, because you look at the cell phone towers, the few that are on it that are full freestanding like this, it sure looks a whole lot different than just the single one with the guy wires. I mean, they really stand out. And of course, you know, it's like anything, once you have them, and you get more of them. That would be my only comment. As far as the use of the property, the zoning, it's fine.
Okay. Other discussion?
Mr. Chair, let me ask a question of staff for a second. This is not in the area that would interfere with the Aero Data Center, right?
Just outside.
No, this is not the area that will interfere in the data center. It's a little bit to the south by, not very much, but it is outside. And even if it was inside, it would be in the ring that caps it at 610 feet, I believe. So it's below the outside ring anyway.
Forgot to ask that question.
Any further discussion?
thing is, I would like to address the visibility thing, but I don't know if we can really do that. We already have these around town.
I think on a conditional use permit at this point, you can do it if you want. Well, I'm not hearing a lot of conversation, so I think I'll call a question. All those in favor of the motion to approve, say aye.
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 Those same sign.
Aye.
Motion carries. Item number 10. David?
Number 9.
Nice.
Oh, excuse me, 9. I'm one ahead of myself. I tell you what, I'm trying to make up so much time tonight. You'd think I had someplace to go. I don't. Number 9. Scott?
Item number 9 is a rezoning request 15-6 to rezone 10 acres from A1 agriculture to a planned development to the Waterway Meadows planned development. The applicant is Tim and Pam Holman, and the property is located north of the Renberg School, off between 257th and 258th, and Haystack Lane, I believe, Haystack Way, Haystack Place. The applicant is requesting to rezone this 10 acres as shown on the map in front of you from A1 agriculture to a planned development. The county utilizes planned developments as a technique with density zoning. We use planned development subdivision regulations to accomplish the goals of the comprehensive plan. And our comprehensive plan states that occasionally these type of developments or there are areas that can be barriers to innovative design and development. And the planned development district was added to the zoning ordinance to provide developers or property owners with a greater flexibility while at the same time increasing the public review of these planned developments. Planned developments can exactly outline uses within the specific district and how the development will occur. Furthermore, a specific set of guidelines for each planned development can be agreed upon by the county and or city and the developer. Planned developments fill an important niche within the overall zoning of Minnehaha County. The applicant has provided a detailed narrative explaining the future goals and developments as well as a site plan for the future development of this 10-acre parcel. A copy of the narrative and the site plan were included for your review. The applicant is requesting that the Waterway Meadows planned development is to allow a single residence to be constructed on 10 acres, known as Tract 1 of Previe Edition. The applicant purchased this parcel in 2012, and the lot was created by William and June Previe in February of 2005. The barn was constructed in April of 2005, and Tract 1 was sold to the current property owners without a building eligibility, creating a nonconformity, which is that of an accessory structure located on a lot without principal established use. The applicant would now like a residence to be constructed on the parcel and to bring the existing barn into compliance with the zoning ordinance. I conducted a staff report or a site visit on August 10th, and the roads, Renberg Street and Haystack Place, are in good condition. There is significant residential development in the general area with two major subdivisions in the area, Vintage Village and High Prairie Ranch, which you can see High Prairie Ranch to the east of the subject property. In addition, there are several other residences located at individual lots throughout the area along Kiwanis Avenue and other areas on 257th and 258th. The applicant is proposing a single sub-area based on the proposed use within the planned development. The single sub-area would allow one single-family residence to be constructed on the subject property. The existing barn would be used as an accessory structure to that principal use. The applicant is proposing to address the nonconforming use that is found at the site and add an additional use, a residential building site. Without rezoning this parcel, the existing barn will continue as a non-conforming use. The proposed addition of a single-family residence into the area should not harm the overall intent of the zoning ordinance. Staff supports the rezoning request, and the county has rezoned parcels in the past with similar situations from an agricultural zoning designation to a residential classification for residential development. The last such rezoning occurred at the corner of 41st and South Riverboat Road in 2013. Staff is recommending approval of rezoning 15-6 to create the Waterway Meadows Plan Development, and as such, creating the overall guidelines for that plan development, which are set forth in your recommendations. And I can briefly go over those. Number one, uses permitted. The buildings the buildings or premises shall be permitted to be used as the following purpose: a maximum of one single-family dwelling. Accessory uses. Number two, accessory uses in buildings permitted are those accessory buildings and uses customarily incident to any permitted use allowed in the A1 Agriculture District. 3, parking regulations. The parking regulations shall be in conformance with the provisions of the A1 Agriculture District. Sign regulations. Signs shall be in conformance with the provisions of the A1 Agriculture District. Density area, height, and yard regulations. Density, area, yard, and height shall be regulated in conformance with the provisions of the A1 Agriculture District. And number 6, a final development plan. Prior to construction on any lot in the Waterway Meadows Plan Development District, a final development plan shall be presented to the Planning Commission for their approval. And I'll show you the slides of the parcel. This is the existing barn, and you can see Haystack Place there, the gravel road on the edge. There is a single-family residence located across the street, and this is the barn of that parcel. This is looking straight north towards 257th. You can see the existing barn off to the left. You can see the rezoning sign, which they have displayed on the corner of the fence right here, notifying the public of the hearing notice, which is tonight. This is looking to the south east into that High Prairie Ranch subdivision. This is looking south also towards High Prairie Ranch subdivision. And this is the existing barn. And this is looking back. The entire 10 acres is fenced, and you can see as it rises up to the north there, back towards those trees. And those are the pictures. I'd be glad to answer any questions that you have. I'll go back to the main slide.
Questions for staff? Scott, I'm quickly looking at the regs here. What are the difference in requirements for parking in a ag area and a residential area?
Well, you have to have, the regulations are basically the same. You have to have 2 parking spaces for each single-family residence.
Okay.
And typically, you'll have an attached garage, and that on a garage would meet the requirements, or you have to have 2 off-street parking spaces.
So you're saying the regulations are essentially the same for ag and residential?
Yeah.
Okay.
I have a question, Mr. Chairman.
Sure.
Okay, now my question is, they're actually asking for 2 things here, correct?
They're asking to rezone the property to a planned development.
But are they not asking first for a building eligibility, basically to put a house next to that barn? Is that not the first thing they're asking for in this description? That's what it says.
Well, that's the intent of the planned development, is to allow residential development to occur on the parcel.
So in addition to that one, we're supposed to give them 14 more housing eligibilities.
No.
No, we are, Scott. Technically, that's what we're doing. you're associating this with the thing we approved in 2013, which we did not approve as a planning board. The county commission did, after it was strongly recommended to them that they put some special conditions on that so it would not serve as any type of precedence in the future. And now we're supposed to put 15 houses on 10 acres, 2 miles from any hard surface road that there's nothing special about.
I don't understand where you're getting 15 houses, because it's
Because
it
if you look at their
specifies-
planned development deal, there's 15 lots on there.
No, there isn't. There's one lot.
No, not on what we were given. Not on what we were given. I counted the lots, I came up with 15.
I don't understand where you're coming with 15. It's one tract 1 of previous edition. That's
Yes,
the legal.
but I'm looking at the next step. Here it is, right here. Is this not it? High Prairie Ranch Edition. Count the lots.
That's over here. That's already
That's not-
existing, and it's right
That's
here.
not the
That's
same?
the adjacent one.
It's right here.
It's that one.
So this is just one?
Just one.
Just one and one only.
Right here. Yes, one.
I still think this goes back to generating eligibilities, and you're doing it through changing this from ag, which it is, to rural residential. And that's not what it is. It's a house in an ag area. Plain and simple. This other developments were done years ago.
Scott, I was just kind of wondering, well, I guess along similar lines, is that why plan development rather than just a rezoning? Because I understand that there's a non-conforming building, accessory building that, you know, and I mean, this, I think I've got why the circumstances why it's there. It could continue to exist as non-conforming.
It can.
Yeah, or we could, you know, put a house there and kind of it becomes conforming if we rezone it as rural residential.
The issue with rezoning to rural residential,
Yeah.
then you are getting closer to what Commissioner Cipher is very concerned about. You could have 10 houses there, because rural residential would allow you to have 1 house per acre.
Yeah, so the plan development is what really enables us to put other stipulations on it.
Correct.
Is that correct?
Yeah.
Okay.
And the stipulation would be that they would get 1 house there. That I did have a nice discussion with the applicant, and that was one of the avenues that we looked at when the applicant came into my office and expressed their desire to be able to build a house on there, or to be able to sell it to allow for a house to be built on there. That was one avenue that I discussed with them, was rezoning it to rural residential could allow you to subdivide that into 1 acre parcels. And you could have, I would suppose, 8 or 9 lots by the time you put a road in there. It would take out some of the
Plating review wouldn't stop that from happening, because you have to plat the lots.
That's correct.
Yeah.
But by rezoning it to a planned development, the applicant's desire to have just 1 house meshed really good with what I thought was going to be the best sell, you know, the best
Yeah.
opportunity to bring
Yeah.
this forward to the planning commission, and that would just be to allow 1 house on 10 acres.
Yep. You just got another set of zoning ordinances with a plan development
Yeah.
that you normally wouldn't have to deal with, but now, you know.
That's correct.
Yeah, so you're kind of making work for yourself, but.
Well, you're allowing something to go in which typically wouldn't be allowed to go in there, and Commissioner Cipher's correct. I mean, we're allowing a residence to go in there when there's no building eligibility now.
Yeah.
Which sets a strong precedent, which is why it should not be allowed.
Well, any
We'll
other
talk
questions?
about that later.
I mean,
Any other
that's-
questions for staff?
Yeah.
Yes.
Scott, isn't it true that along the river there, it's basically flooded with eligibilities that can't otherwise be used, right?
That's correct. I mean, there are many eligibilities which are located, I think you're referring to the floodplain.
Yeah.
And not impossible, but extremely difficult to utilize those because of the 100-year floodplain or floodway. We don't allow any development in the floodway. And
So
if
those
you-
should be able to be acquired, perhaps.
Not acquired. I mean, they're
Buy
out
land,
there.
And then you've got the eligibility.
There's eligibilities out there, but they're not used for.
What's that?
It's not contiguous land. I know Commissioner Sweep used to have this thing, just like you're saying, he was so concerned about the guys in the floodplain. Oh my goodness, they can't use their eligibility. Well, that just reflects the value of the land in which you bought, is what it is. They aren't usable unless you can get contiguous out to above the floodplain. And that's the way it's always been, and that's the way it should be.
And that's what I'm suggesting as well.
So,
It
you see anything
happens.
contiguous there?
There could be.
There could be, potentially. It was interesting going down 257th Street across the bridge. I didn't realize there was that big of a bridge across the river right in that area.
Any other questions for Scott? Thank you, Scott.
Okay. The applicant's here.
Is the applicant here? Please come forward, state your name and address, and tell us about your project.
Tim Holman, 25725, 464th Street, by Hartford, just north of Hartford. Okay, we lived in Vintage Village by Packard Lane, on Packard Lane there. And we bought this property for our horses a couple of years ago. Since we sold the house on Packard Lane, and we're also building a house out by Hartford right now. And as we tried to sell this, we found out it became the non-conforming building through the process and talking with Scott and my wife. We found out the best way to go through it is the process in which Scott has advised us to go through. And so, and that's why we don't want a huge development. We just want to be able to say there's one house there, and as you go through it, and when you have non-conforming, it's kind of hard to sell anything in that land. We don't need the land. We basically don't want to run back and forth and maintain both properties. So that's where we're in. We tried to find the best solution for this, and we're hoping for your consideration for it.
Questions from the applicant? So it's not your intent to use this property. It's your intent to sell it.
Right. We've been trying to sell, but when you have a non-conforming on it, and they call down the office down there, it's it's kind of a
The value isn't as great.
right. And we basically we want to solve the problem for the next person to purchase it, because if we did sell it, there'd still be non-conforming on it, and then they would have to deal with something, whatever issues come up with the non-conforming title to it.
Okay. Any other questions? Commissioner Brown?
I guess I'm going back to staff again, though.
Okay.
Are there eligibilities on properties currently contiguous with this?
It's my understanding that previes have eligibilities available. That they,
Where's their
I
property?
think they have the greater chunk of property that's located here,
Down there.
this bigger parcel.
And what about to the north?
No, you can see that these eligibilities are taken up by the residences that there are out here.
Thank you, Mr. Holman. Is there anyone else in the audience that would like to speak to this item? Sir? Pam?
Yes. I'm Pam Holman. I would say that I did do the initial research, and I thought, wow, to solve this problem, let's just have it be a rural residential. And that's when Scott informed me that that would automatically open the gate to 10 homes or whatever. And we are very much opposed to that. So we asked, are there any solutions for one home? The neighbors in the High Plains Ranch, all that area, have been extremely supportive. And of course, we lived in Vintage Village on the other side of it. And again, as we have moved, actually we're homeless right now, but we'll be moving soon into our home in Minnehaha County, north of Hartford. And we just don't want to have to have the upkeep of two places. But it is a challenge for buyers to know that there's a barn there that shouldn't exist, and it's a very nice barn. And of course, we've maintained insurance on it, and it's well kept. Thank you for your consideration.
Certainly, thank you. Commissioners?
This is why they pay us big bucks.
You
to get mileage, I wouldn't be here.
And I tried to skip it, so,
Here's where I come back on this thing. I still get back to, yeah, what they're doing is fine, but someone created this non-conforming use when they bought it. And that's our problem, so now we're supposed to, and I don't care how you come about, what your wording is, you're gifting them a housing eligibility right here. And it's precedence. Because what happened here, in 2013, we did this over on 41st Street and that, which was a totally different deal because there was a main sewer trunk line from the city of Sioux Falls going through that property as well, which means it could be part of a sanitary sewer district in the future. That was totally different than this, totally different. And I will never support anything that generates housing eligibilities like this. I just won't. They're out there for a reason. And yes, once in a while there's something special, but this was, the landowners created this problem. County planning did not. And I'd move for denial.
A motion to deny, is there a second?
I'll second that.
Motion and a second to deny, further discussion?
Mr. Chairman?
Yes.
I would just say that there is opportunity for eligibilities to be imported there through numerous devices which I've seen over the years, and all of which are perfectly normal for this type of thing. And being that close to the river, there's got to be plenty of.
We had the same, for example, okay, I'll give you an example. There's one over there on Highway 115. For years has tried to move those up through this narrow 1 acre lot over to the other side.
And he's done that.
No, we've continually said no on
Are you talking about the Johnson?
that. No, this is Peterson.
Okay, sorry. Maybe it is Peterson.
You know, he specifically bought one of the lots so we could try and move it through there, and we said, no, we're not gonna go there. And yes, they're, even for them to get an eligibility, they have to buy an acre of land with it. So it'd be contiguous. Whether or not the creeps or whatever would sell them, well, who knows?
Right.
Mr. Chairman, I didn't do any kind of extensive research on what eligibilities were out there because it wasn't germane to their request.
Understood.
Okay.
Thank you for clarifying that.
I think my concern is that it wasn't the same situation, but someone else out more in Bonnie's neck of the woods who bought property without building eligibilities, thinking they could build, and then came to us, and it wasn't quite the same, but we denied it because we have tried to adhere to the law that we don't create building eligibilities.
And that was in the joint area there.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Pam.
Mr. Chairman, just in comment or information to Mr. Cypher's inquiry as to how was it created. In my research, because when we bought this property, we had no idea about the non-conforming. The building permit was granted by the county in 2005 for a barn with septic. So personally, I don't feel like the landowners created the problem.
Were you under the impression at the time you bought it that you had a building eligibility with it?
It wasn't about eligibility, it was about that we had a legitimate barn.
Yeah, and you still do, and it's just non-conforming. You can't, there's certain things you can and can't do with that.
Well, it's just problematic when a
Right,
potential
because
buyer is told that if the barn burns down, they can't rebuild it.
I understand.
That's why I feel like there needs to be consideration given to this issue.
Sure. Thank you. Okay, we do have a motion on the floor and a second. Further discussion? All those in favor of the motion to deny, say aye.
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 Opposed, same sign.
Aye.
The motion to deny is carried. Now we're ready for item number 10.
Just make sure that everyone in the audience knows that there will be a hearing in front of the county commission September 29th at 9 a.m. on this plan development. And at that time, your recommendation goes to the county commission.
You're on.
Good evening, Commission. David Heino, Planning Department. This is a text amendment to amend the agricultural tourism section of the ordinance 12.13B, in parentheses there, for the permitted uses to the 1980 revised zoning ordinance for Minnehaha County. So Section 1, let me back up a little bit. This proposed amendment has been requested by Lee Anderson and Janelle Johnson, which they currently have a hops farm growing out just north of Grand Falls Casino, which has been brought forward to our attention to allow breweries to the permitted uses section, as I mentioned, to the agricultural tourism ordinance. Petitioners have submitted an ordinance amendment that doesn't meet the intent of the current ordinance, or the intent of agricultural tourism section. So we revised that to similarly reflect the standards that are seen with the wineries. Just going into some of the detail as far as your main producing and selling a product in the tasting room, and just going through and some research, doing a little bit of research through what laws are on the books. Really, there's just that main one of having a small brewery. There's some licensing requirements, but it's dependent upon how many barrels per year you produce, depending on what kind of fee you would pay. So it doesn't go into the extent that wineries have to apply by, but and just going through many other things through the alcohol and tobacco and firearms, the federal regulations, they go through those line by line, and then there's additional, like I said, the state regulations too, which we go into more with the accessory uses, and and then retail, tasting rooms, things like that, having merchandise available, and the occasional non-prepared food or limited food. So skip forward. As I mentioned, the concessions would be only limited food services on the site, which could include deli services, prepackaged tasting room, events with food, on-site catering. No food will be cooked to order, although a list can be or a list of prepackaged foods being posted. And then the last one is special events would be allowed a maximum of 4 special events throughout the year, and additional special events would require a temporary use permit. This one. And private events, which would be determined based on the size of the parcel, surrounding land use, available parking, transportation routes, how to get to and from the site, other land use factors, what's around in the area, and other things, maximum capacity should be stated in writing. And then G, a minimum of 1 acre of crop is used in the production of beer, must be grown on the site. And then skipping forward, this is different from what the applicant had submitted, which reflects what's in the winery ordinance, that the operator of the brewery must reside on the site, and that it remains secondary to the principal use of the property as a residential site for agricultural production. Then going into that, if the residential agricultural production ceases, then the brewery shall cease. And then the last one, the brewery must be located on a parcel that's not less than 10 acres in size. Just doing a little bit more research and trying to find out that is similar to what other counties throughout the country are implementing with some of the brewery ordinances, which vary, but have some of the key underlying features as far as controlling the land use side. Things like parking, transportation, things that aren't covered with the state or federal regulations, so giving a little bit more local control over these types of uses. So like I said, this proposed ordinance is an attempt to create consistency among the permitted agricultural tourism uses. If the applicant and or property owner is unable to meet the aforementioned conditions, then they may submit an agricultural tourism permit to be heard by the same body, the Planning Commission. This process allows for a more extensive review of the agricultural tourism permit requests on a case-by-case basis to determine if the proposal is appropriate land use and fits with the goals and policies of the Envision 2035 Comprehensive Plan. In addition to this, staff requests 2 more sections to the agricultural tourism ordinance, which is similar to what the existing text is in the conditional use permit section. So taking that and changing those words and allowing that review, recall, and if there's an issue with the proposed use or the property owner or whoever's running the brewery, whether that be a winery or U-Pick operation, that the planning director has that opportunity to bring this back before the planning commission for review if needed, and that goes for all of the uses, not just the ones that would come back before the planning commission, so even the permitted uses. And then the last part to this is trying to create some consistency. There's some things that we found with the winery section that was confusing wording and conflicting with one another. So there was 1 acre, as you can see the line that's crossed out, which must have a minimum of 1 acre grown on the site and used in the wine production. And then the other one, as you can see right there, it says minimum ½ acre of product used in the production of wine must be grown on the site. So ½ acre, half is crossed out, replaced with 1, and then product is crossed out, replaced with crop. So those are the changes on that section. Just going through, so the state's attorney has reviewed and approved of the proposed ordinance language included in the attached document. Staff finds that the proposed text amendment changes are consistent with the intent of the agricultural tourism section to help promote the agricultural heritage and the rural character of the county and the Envision 2035 comprehensive plan. So staff recommends approval of zoning text amendment 15-01. I'll answer any questions if you have them.
Chairman.
Yes.
One thing that doesn't seem consistent is when we look at this, you know, on the hops thing, you said 1 acre of product used. Okay. But but you're requiring them to have 10 total acres. Now, we don't require a winery to have 10 total acres, do we? I mean,
So
do we require 10?
The 10 total acres is for the parcel size.
But I mean, even on a winery, do we require a winery to have
It's
10 total
minimum
acres?
10 acres for the parcel,
Okay, I didn't
not
know
for
if that
the
was-
amount of.
Because as I was looking at this, it made me wonder, is that a requirement of the winery size as well?
It is.
Because you're only required 1 acre of actual production. I just want to make sure that was consistent. That was my question, if it was consistent.
Other questions for David? David, I'm fond. I'm sorry.
Oh, go ahead.
I'm fond of this agritourism concept and what we have going. I guess one question would be the 4 events, and I'm just thinking of some of our existing wineries that have an every Thursday night thing, and is that, because I see that there's some language here, if approved by the planning director, is that how that happens so frequently?
Are you talking about the events that are over, they're allowed
Yes.
to happen?
Yeah.
So that would have to come back if there's more than 4, whatever's in their conditional use permit. But there's
Yeah, I understand, so straw bale's got, events with some frequency. Is that under the private events deal? Is that how that's happening?
They're basically not special events. They're just
Promotions.
Promotions, yeah. I mean, they're just sort of like ongoing. Come out and they're not special events. They're special events. For example, Don South called me last week. Their next special event is the Fiddlers and whatever with the public radio. They just had one 2 or 3 weeks ago with the Rib Fest thing.
Right.
Those are major special events.
And they're limited to 4 of those?
4, yeah.
And please understand by my asking, I'm not implying that something differently should be done. I just was trying to understand how it's done, because I think there's some people in the audience who would also maybe like to know how those things are done.
The other portion is just marketing, basically.
Okay.
Weekly.
And I agree with that thought process. Another question: when you go from David, when you go from 1/2 acre of the crop being used in the product to 1 acre, is it going to put any of our existing agritourism businesses in a non-compliant situation?
It's going the other way, from 1 to
Yeah.
half.
Oh, I thought it was.
No.
It says number 1.
It's going from 1/2 to 1.
One.
Oh, it
So
is.
it's going
So,
up, right?
so in the first one, as you see right there, it says 1 acre of crops grown on the site is used in wine production. So that one right there is, the minimum is 1 acre for.
Yeah, right. But it
The other
used to
one-
be ½ acre, correct? if this change goes through?
Not really. What David's trying to tell you is we had two sections of our ordinance. That
Okay.
One said for the existing wineries,
Yep.
one said you had to have 1 acre, another area said you had to have half an acre.
I see.
So
Clear that up.
we're all clearing it up to just everything is 1 acre.
On page 23,
Yes.
on the line 1, it says, wineries have to have 1 acre. And then on item G, it says then back to the 1 acre. It's
Yep.
just, it's confusing.
Yeah, okay, I just wanted to make sure that we
That's what we're trying
causing
to
a problem
eliminate.
for existing.
There's a inconsistency in the ordinance, the existing ordinance.
So can I suggest, and I think this is your intent, but I don't know that it works out this way in the wording. In that item G that I'm reading there, minimum 1 acre of crop used in the production of wine must be grown on the site. Production of wine produced at the site must be grown on the site. Grapes can be sold. They could be selling somebody else's wine and selling the grapes to another wine company. I don't think that's the intent. You understand what I'm saying?
The wine from the grapes grown there should be produced, the wine should be produced there.
No, they can import grapes, great,
Sure.
right? Because they're blending and all
Which they
that.
need
But
to.
if they don't use, if they just got a crap crop, or they have a bad, you can put some grapevines in. You can have, and you can sell the grapes to somebody else. But if you aren't really producing wine with the grapes, it's a farce. At least some use of the grapes.
Or you never pick them.
Yeah. So all I'd suggest is the production of wine on the site must be grown on the site. Just some changing there. You understand my intent? What I'm saying?
So you're saying move around on the site?
No. Minimum of 1 acre of crop used in the production of wine at the location must be grown on the site. The production of the wine at that location, because. Well, all right, maybe
On-site grape production used for on-site wine production. On-site wine production, or grape production used for on-site wine production.
Yeah, we've got the same intent, however you want to word it. But they can be making 100% of their wine without any of the grapes that they have, and the grapes could be sold someplace else. Not a big deal.
Can I ask something completely different?
Yeah, please.
Is it fair to hold beer producers to the same limit as wine? I mean, they're different agricultural products. I mean, if you're growing soybeans and pumpkins, it's different. Maybe the experts in the audience have a view on that.
Well, honestly, I was going to also say that I think we ought to be talking about distilleries as well. I'd love to see some rye whiskey made.
So the potatoes I grow are used for vodka production?
Exactly. Yeah.
Which should almost be addressed at the same time.
I think we talked about that, and
Micro-
that's a different, isn't that under, there's a different state law that deals with distilleries.
There is.
It's a
But I
separate
think,
state law.
But it still could be an agribusiness.
what about hops? I mean, that's different than grapes. I mean, beers. Lucille Ball was never stopping on hops.
That she would know. And maybe maybe one size doesn't fit all, so it'd be hard to make an ordinance to cover it all, and
Yeah, have a separate
have a
strategy.
separate ordinance. But I think we ought to look at
I
some
mean,
of
we
these other
both want
potentials.
the on-site production to be used for on-site
Right.
consumption.
Yep. And then I also think that it'd be nice to encourage some other types of agritourism, because I think what's going on at the wineries in the area, whether they're in our county or not, but we've got several in the area, I think it's great.
The wineries without grapes are a sore spot.
Yeah.
Yes, they are. So, if I may, Mr. Chair, could we ask one of the
Yeah, anything else for David?
beer meisters, masters?
All right, anyone else from the audience here that'd like to come forward? Please come forward, state your name and address, and tell us what's on your mind.
Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for having me time tonight. My name is Lee Anderson. I'm the owner-operator of Anderson Hop Farm. We currently don't live out there. The address is 26677 486 Valley Springs. We're currently in our 4th year, so we're finally into getting a crop, big production, so you're starting to see what we're able to harvest. Now you're finally getting into an area of production where you can walk people around and it's aesthetically pleasing. So it's not just bare little vines. Now they're big, beautiful plants, big, healthy cones. Every year we've done a seasonal with Crow Peak. Last year they released the 605 Harvest Pale Ale. That went to a 5-state distribution. Currently we're en route with 250 pounds to them tonight. We just got done harvesting.
Great.
They're going out there to do a beer tomorrow, so we're really excited about that. These are a couple associates here with me. That's Weston and that's Grady. My fiance is out there, and another partner, Alex, isn't here with us. We're just really excited about the potential of it. We see the wine industry. We see a lot of people stopping by us just due to Grand Falls right on 486. It lines up right with exit 410. You just go straight south and you drive right by us. Everybody's got their Titleist just screaming by, you know. I want them to pump the brakes right by that brewery and take a peek. Because they're already stopping, they're already asking what we're doing. What is this? What's all that? If I could sell you a beer, you'd have all my time.
So you're currently selling your hops to another brewery?
Oh yes, absolutely.
Which is located where?
Spearfish, South Dakota,
Okay.
Crow Peak.
Okay. So how long does it take, and this is just, it goes like the wine thing too,
Mhm.
like wine, it takes the 3rd year before you really get grapes, so how long does it take to get hops?
You're looking at 4 to 5 years. You know, the first year we had 2 acres in the ground and we harvested 57 pounds. You know, and this year we're probably going to pull down maybe 15 to 1,700 pounds.
So now
At max production, we'll be doing about 12,000 pounds.
And you trellis them up?
Absolutely, yes, sir.
I've
trellis
seen
is
a place by Madison, Wisconsin, it has.
We're 13 and a half feet in the air.
Okay.
Due to our winds, we didn't go the national 17 to 20 feet. We're not in a shelter belt. We got down near high water table content. We planted on a hill next to a couple drain tile fields that kind of all link together, so we don't have to use as much irrigation. We're tapped on with rural water. We've wrote a couple grants through the state. We've worked with the South Dakota State Extension Office. We've worked with the Minnesota State Extension Office, and we've also gone and given specialty crop speeches in 2013 for the local foods conference out in the Black Hills at our farm. We want to reach out to the community. We want to see a lot of people do this. The amount of breweries that are popping up in the area and on a national rate, we want to introduce people into the hop game and into the brewery and kind of show our product, because once we can prove what's in the bottle and what we're growing, it's going to make our crop go up. It's going to prove that our soils around here and maybe our water saturation levels are way better than anywhere in the country.
So how many acres do you currently have?
We currently have 6 in production. And,
6 acres?
In production, yes.
So when that's in full production, so how does that translate to how much beer?
Oh, that's a really hard question. Weston, can you come here and help me
Does
with
it
this?
vary year to year?
Okay. This is you're looking at a lot of different things. I do a lot of brewing, and this is the brewer. This is Weston. I do the hop growing, so we're doing a big collaboration.
Okay.
Yes, well, I'd say you need like 10 acres of barley to 1 acre of hops. And, some hops, do you guys know what IBUs are, or bittering units in beer? So if you need to have like a 10 IBU beer and like 10 gallons of beer, that's like only a handful of hops. But if you want like an IPA, you're going to need like 2 or 3 pounds in 10 gallons. So a field can make, up to maybe 300 gallons of IPA an acre, or you can make like 1,300 gallons of a pale ale, because you only need a limited amount of hops. So, it really depends. If we have a bad year, like a bad crop year, let's say a drought happens, like I'm from Oregon, I moved here to 473rd Street outside of Worthing. We have a couple acres of hops too, and there was a drought in Oregon this year, and there was also a lot of different varieties. Some that we're growing are going to be in shortage. So if we can get this brewery going and then extend our acreage, and then we can kind of supply that need that's kind of currently in the hop game right now.
So as a grower then, what's your anticipated, how many pounds per acre in a good year?
If we're doing everything correctly, what these numbers are due to the variety. Some might be 1,800 pounds, some might be 2,400 pounds. I've done an average at about 2,000, and if we can hit that on my 6 acres, that's 12,000 pounds. He's got 4 acres in the ground, and he also did 44 acres of malted barley this year. We want to go completely field to plate.
So are you satisfied with your hops grower then?
He's the best one I've ever met.
That's why, seriously.
He's serious. I can tell just by listening to him. He's really intense about this.
It's attention to
That's
detail
good.
with them. You know, it's called farming, but it's large scale gardening. You know, I get a lot of jokes from my friends and family because I got my dad's old leather, plier holsters, but mine's got a scissors. Well, why don't you get a pliers? Well, if I need a pliers or the brakes, I'll get it. But look at all these plants. We got to prune stuff.
Interesting. Great.
The one thing that I want to point out for the commission is they actually requested to have a brewery with no one living on the property, and we changed that to require a residence on the property to make it consistent with the wineries.
Yes.
And if that's not what you want, or if you want to go down a different path, I just want to make sure you're clear on that tonight, because I think it's their request not to have to live on the property. So that's the discussion I think we need to have.
Please address that.
Okay. I guess the reason why we didn't live out there, I live at 409 South Hawthorne here in Sioux Falls. So I travel outside every day. I would love to be able to live out there. But I own a home, I have 3 kids, and I am financially invested in this. It takes a long time for hops to pay out. It's going to. We're going to hit that. But until that happens, I can't sell my house and build a new house. I would like maybe like a 3 to 5 years, and I will build out there. If we could bring up a map, there's a homestead about 80 acres to the north that my family homesteaded in 1864, and I would like to live there if we could move that way, because it's a shelter belt, it's homesteaded, it's lineage. We wouldn't be taking up crop land. I want to plant hops, I want to plant barley, I don't want to put a house there. If you're going to make me live anywhere, I would like to live up in my homestead, please.
Isn't this right on the Red Rock corridor, and didn't we make that South Dakota side of that, on the road there, like commercial or something? Wasn't there a gas station going to go in right there on the one corner?
But that's right on 42.
Yeah.
We're bringing up a map for you to look at.
Regarding the, so my initial thought was, we need to have somebody living there. Well, consistent, but if you had consistency, things would never change, right? So, yeah, well, what we're talking about is an ordinance here. We're not talking about an application. So if we're going to make an ordinance, this would be the time to do something different.
Well, and you have to also understand, and you do, that once you make one ordinance, it's going to apply to everyone. So that's the other thing that I don't think I want to make sure applicants know that too, that there could be other potentially
Other reasons not to do this.
other hop growers or people doing breweries, and
Yep.
whether we're going to allow them to have to live on there or not.
I wonder, given the amount of ramp-up time to make these things financially feasible, though, if you don't have a period of time
Absolutely.
before the residence is required, so that you can make it happen.
So where are you at?
So, yeah.
Why don't you go ahead and
Excuse me.
map up there.
Okay. David, can you zoom in on 266? Okay, right there. That's our farm right there that you're looking at.
With all the rows, that's
Yep,
on our
absolutely.
sides?
That's the trellis, and if you see the building right there to the south,
Mhm.
that's us. We've got all the space in there to do it. I put in a 2,000-gallon septic system with a 200-foot leach field. I put in a 400-amp fuse box, 2-inch water line. So things like that aren't restricted. We're on a water system from rural water that they signed off on. We're actually wrapping around the terrace up there. So I see, like honeymoons at the hop yard. I see weddings because the terrace is there, the gazebos. You're looking into the sunset, you'd be elevated.
It's not in that Red Rock corridor.
Here's that highway.
I see it is. Yeah.
And another thing that if we were to live there, this is agricultural. I use things. I'm not organic. I use sprays like Warrior, pesticides and stuff that are non-enter for 24 hours. Some of these things with the brewery, it isn't hey, let's open up at 11 a.m. and go to 2 in the morning. This is very niche. We're going to be renting out for parties, open certain times, not all day, every day, rambling through. We have to be a farm as well. I have to be able to do everything that I'm trying to do on that farm for production first before we can get into this.
So we changed the ordinance, and then before we could go into full operation for events, then we would have to have them come again, right?
I would time like my spraying with bugs or pesticides if I was going to do a burn down for weed control under my plants. I do a burn down so I don't have weeds on my plants, bugs on my plants at about maybe 2 feet, so I can see where my irrigation lines are, so we don't mow them, where we don't weed whack them. That's something you don't want to go in when we spray for like aphids or spider mites. That's stuff you don't want to go back into. And we would just time it accordingly with, hey, all right, we're going to have a party Saturday because it's somebody's wedding. Well, we'll probably spray on like a Monday or a Tuesday so that doesn't have an effect. Hopefully we can get in the swing of things and start booking out a little ways in advance. And last year we threw a big party out there, and Grand Falls kind of helped shuttle people back and forth. We'd like to cut them their own line of beer and try to bump elbows with them. Maybe you can market us a little bit. Come on.
Any other questions for Mr. Anderson?
That's interesting.
Yeah, I got a question. How often do you have other than a drought, which production would be down, but like with insects, is that a big problem in that? Because I farm not too far from you, and 4 years ago when you put this up, I thought, what an idiot! What is he doing? To be fair, there were several people in the neighborhood that thought the same thing.
I put 40 grand in the ground and people laughed at it.
Yeah,
we did, and we still
I
are.
did.
And it's funny. I put it in the ground and I said, I can grow these hops. And they go, you've never even seen a hop. Well, I can grow plants. That's what I want to do. And I saw this dream. And we steamrolled into it. And we got into our second year and, we grew the hops. And it came down to equipment. Well, we can do all that, but if you don't have the equipment to handle it and you're going to hand pick this, forget about it. You just might as well close the doors. So we ended up getting a wolf picker. It came from 1973. It came from Poland. It got dismantled, and it's like an old thrashing machine. It just rips it off and spits out the cones. And there's not one. The closest one is near like Madison, Wisconsin, or Hotchkiss, Colorado. There's not one in Minnesota, Nebraska, Iowa. It's crazy. It just happened to work. And now we want to go to the next phase on this. The bugs are always going to be a problem. With the drought, that can fluctuate, but we're on irrigation, 1 gallon an hour. We've hooked it up with rural water, so it's pressurized, it's filtered. Someday we'd like to dig a well, but that's in the future. We're always going to have bugs. We can spray that. What I'm worried about are like the mildews, vermiculite wilt, viruses, things where I'm going to have to put like peroxide into the soil and really get crazy. Because here's a good one. Agrarian Brewing Company out in Oregon is a 5-acre field-to-plate brewery. Last year they ripped out 2 acres of plants due to systemic powdery mildew. Well, they don't have anywhere else to go. They had to plant right back in that soil. That's really bad. That's 5 years where you shouldn't be putting in something like that. They have no choice but to keep trying to put it in, keep putting things in the soil, keep doing treatments. It's crazy that we're doing hops out here, but if you look before Prohibition down in like Yankton, Vermilion, they were growing around here. And then once it went to Prohibition, they ripped out the crop. I mean, if you're growing something that isn't worth any money, we're not going to do that. So it just got mechanized, and now it's getting switched. You're seeing droughts, you're seeing blights, you're seeing systemic mildews out in a hop mecca, which is big news for the Midwest.
Okay.
Is he passionate about this?
I think so, yeah.
I'm sorry, I appreciate it.
Thank you.
It's interesting, very interesting.
All right, so we've got a recommendation to approve an ordinance, but I honestly, am wondering if there shouldn't be some tweaking here relating to the residence thing. I think that ultimately, when we got a lot of events and those types of things, to be consistent there. And I also like the control of someone being on the premises. Now, how you define the premises, with its in, maybe it's maybe there could even be flexibility for the staff to look at a proximity thing.
Can I ask you a
Period of
question,
years to
Wayne?
get ramped up, yeah.
When we approved the one west of Garrett's, the winery is actually east of the place, the new building.
Well, it's all on the same parcel.
I know it's all on the same parcel, but there is like a quarter mile separation.
You were out there. I
Yeah,
didn't think it was that far, but.
It's probably about a
It's about
quarter
that.
mile.
Okay.
Yeah. So there is, but it's the same property, which
Yep.
makes a difference
Yeah.
too. It's contiguous.
So, I guess so, to make these, I guess you want an ordinance with some control, you want some ordinance to enable it, but you don't want an onerous ordinance. So one that would allow a glide path to some profitability, and if there are activities there where are requiring them to live on site is not good for their health and things, maybe there's a proximity thing. So I'd like to maybe have maybe another month to.
I agree with you, Mr. Chairman. I wonder if we might get some legal advice on this issue, or because I wouldn't want to write it in a way that disrupted every other winery / distillery in town.
You would affect any new ones.
Yeah. Sarah, do you have any thoughts on how it should be written?
It's up to you guys, but it'd be nice to have some time to take a look at it.
Make a motion to defer for 1 month to allow staff and legal to research the intent of this body and to allow young plants to grow.
We've got a motion, is there a second?
Second that.
Motion and second to defer, any further discussion? Staff, do you have an idea what we're talking about as far as, the general direction?
Yeah, I understand.
Yeah. Okay.
I guess I was the instigator in saying I wanted it consistent with wineries. And so, because I just thought that if we're requiring wineries, people to live on wineries, I don't think a brewery, and maybe I'm uneducated on all of what happens on a brewery, so it'll be a good education for us.
I don't disagree with your intent, but
Yeah.
As a part of that, could we also ask the staff to kind of upgrade us as far as distilleries? What is the deal if somebody wants to put a
Yeah.
distillery? It'd be good to know.
We can
As part
explain
of
to
it,
you.
yeah.
We can look into it.
And explain it in small words.
Yeah. And maybe we cross that bridge when it comes to it, but a distillery or something. Those could be interesting.
Yeah.
All right, so we've got a motion. Further discussion, yes, ma'am.
Well, I agree. I think we want consistency, but I think it's just good to look at and make sure that what we have has the intended consequences. To make sure that we don't inadvertently make it onerous, so that we.
I totally agree, and I wanted to have a really good discussion that's why I brought it up. I wanted to make sure that we understood that there could be a difference between wineries and breweries, and if that's the direction the Planning Commission wanted to go, I'm fine with that. I didn't want anyone to be surprised 2 years from now when there's no one living there and there's a brewery or.
But should that, Scott, but the two should be actually synonymous in the requirement, shouldn't they, for the most part? Whether it be residential, whether it be, shouldn't they be the same, because technically they're doing the same thing, just a different product.
Technically, but you just heard an argument from the applicant on why they didn't want to have to live there. So I guess we're going to have to discuss that. We'll discuss that in a month, but it'll give you also an additional time to think about.
Sure.
Do you want people living there, or is it okay not to have people living there?
Okay, I think I haven't called the question yet, so all those in favor of the motion to defer for 1 month, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, same sign. Motion carries. Thanks for coming in. I think you're on a good path. but maybe
Come back
we'll see you in
next
a month,
month.
too.
Thank you very much. We appreciate your time.
Thank you.
So, old business?
Quick report. Last week, the county commission overturned your decision on the 20 acres south of Wildwater West to rezone it to C commercial. And
Bonnie, you should bring that up. She got a call.
Well,
related
And I called,
yeah,
I
and
called Scott.
and I had a lady that had called over the weekend and was very upset and left a message on my voicemail. We contacted her today to explain the process. But
And that meeting, no one spoke against it. I mean, the applicants were there and opponents were sitting in the room and
Didn't say anything. Yeah.
some of the opponents.
Some of them,
yeah.
because the call I got, he didn't know that it was going to the county commission. I mean, even though the information was at this meeting, which I didn't attend, because I was gone, but.
The lady that left the message on my phone over the weekend, she was surprised that she didn't get a notice in the mail. But when you have a hearing, just like we're going to have for the Holmans here next month, we don't send out certified letters for that meeting. That meeting is advertised in the paper. There's a legal notice that's published in the paper, and that is the way that the public is made known. That's why I wanted to make sure that we announced.
Yeah, maybe need to emphasize a little bit more
that
follow up.
this is a recommendation. It will go to the planning, or the county commission will make a final decision on your recommendation on this date.
Okay.
So, but
and even that isn't final if they take it to court.
that's right, and that's what we told the gentleman that we talked to, and the lady that they still have recourse, and that is if they feel that the county commission acted arbitrary or capriciously or whatever reasons they can come up with, they can go to circuit court.
And beyond.
Yeah, and beyond. And then the other item was 2 weeks ago, we were awarded the innovative plan. The Envision 2035 was awarded innovative
Way to go, guys.
plan by the West Central chapter of the APA, the American Planning Association. The West Central chapter consists, I think, of 12 states. So it was awarded, our plan was recognized and given an innovative award. So there was only one given out for the entire year, and it was us.
Wow.
So
Did you get a free trip with it?
David went to Laramie last week and accepted the award. But it was actually, it was David and Kevin that primarily did most of that work, and it had started out with other staff members, but then there was a long lag, as you know. It sort of there was some transition there, and by the time we got back up and going again, we needed to sort of like start over again to get everything current. So it was a lot of work, and the planning commission and our task force all did a very good job, and we had all the public meetings. And
But David, before you raise, give me the exact location. Where is that from, like the Kellow Tower Road? I want to drive by that place.
Right there's the border, commercial area. On the
So
border.
it goes straight north to there,
Curve.
a mile east.
Mike,
1 mile
Dick
east,
Lacey's
1
place,
mile north,
where Dick
or
lives, go 1.5 miles east, 3/4 miles south.
South. Okay, so we're on the county street.
Okay, other stuff? Interesting.
no, that's all I have.
It's all right.
Anything else?
I apologize for being late. I'm happy to say that I'm going to be in Hawaii celebrating my 40th anniversary next month, so I won't be here. So
We won't wait for
you. Don't wait for me.
And next month is also the return of the Elbers CAFO. So,
I might not make
Actually,
it.
better
so I'm just preparing yourself, and that's a reminder.
Their ducks in a row this time.
Also a reminder for Kevin to start babysitting them. We'll have to start
Also start calling and emailing.
So whose number?